Hi everyone, welcome to Frontend Mechanics. My name is Nikhil, and in this video we'll be putting our design and development skills to practice by designing and developing a simple yet interesting project. So I got this challenge from FrontendMentor. They have a great number of challenges on their website, so you can attempt them and you can put them on your portfolio. So for today's video, we'll be doing this particular project over here, which is the newsletter SignUp. Throughout this project, we'll be developing this particular desktop design. We'll also design the error state. So whenever the user provides a wrong input, it will turn to this. We'll also design a success state which will pop up when the user provides a correct input. And lastly, we'll also make this website responsive for mobile. For the entire project, we'll be using ReactJS and CSS. So this project is beginner friendly, as I will be explaining every bit of code, every mechanism that I input into this project. So without any further delay, let's start. Alright, so let's begin our coding process. And for that, I have created this folder newsletter in one of my drives. And within this folder, I have opened up VS Code. So to install our React application, we'll open up the terminal over here. And then we can write the command npx create react app and then the name of our app. So for simplicity, we'll just name it newsletter. Alternatively, if you don't want to use npx over here, you can also use Vite. It's a great tool to start up your project. It will provide you a much faster build and a much faster and efficient startup. So if you want to give Vite a try, please do. I'll be using Vite in my upcoming videos, so we'll be able to see the difference between npx and the Vite. So here we'll just press enter over here, or alternatively, if you want to use plain HTML, CSS and JavaScript, you can do that also. You can simply see the logic and the code from this video and then try to replicate in simple HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So I'll see you once this is done. Okay, so our React application has now been installed, and we can just go inside this by typing in cd newsletter, and we're inside our newsletter application, and now we can execute the command npm start. So this will run up the server on port 3000 and we'll be able to see our application. But before we can develop our application and start with the development and everything, we'll go here and remove some of the unnecessary and unwanted files. So for example, we don't want setup test.js, we don't want report web vitals, this logo, and the styling which is inside of app.css. We don't want all of this, so we'll just remove this. So setup, so we'll remove this, and this will delete them. I'll also delete the logo over here. After the logo, we need index.js, but we have removed report web vital, so let's just delete this from here and from here as well. Let's remove the semicolon. Save this. Still one more error, so we can keep this, or if you want, we can even remove these. We don't want app.test, this file app.test.js, so we'll remove this. Within the app.js, we want this file but not the content inside of it. But before that, we can remove all of this initial styling. But still one more error, it's in app.js, there's no logo. We'll delete this, and also this particular line will delete. Okay, so our app is running now. We can see our app is running now, but we don't want anything, so let's just delete everything inside of it. We'll name and just give it a heading of h1, and we'll say newsletter over here. Okay, it's running. There are no styles to it and nothing. So now we are ready to start up our project. Before we can proceed on to the implementation of our first component, I have created the simple diagram over here to break up our approach and to explain you how we'll be proceeding to achieve this particular result that we are seeing on the left hand side. So we'll create a container at the very first, which will contain everything that we have inside our component. Next, we'll create another div. So every box that you see over here, it's essentially a div. So the very first div would be container. It will contain everything and it will be equal to the viewport height and width. So whatever screen size that you are using, it will be equal to that. If you don't want to use container and just wrapper, that is fine also. You can extend the wrapper to the entire screen. Next thing that we are going to create is a wrapper which will contain the center part, like this white part that you're seeing over here. So the main card that you're seeing, so this is the wrapper. Then we'll be creating two divs, one on the left side, this one, and one on the right side. So the left side div will have multiple divs inside like this to stack up the content over here. So here we can see that we have a heading, we have a subtitle, a list of items, an input and a button. So for each of them we can use div like this. It will give us much better control over the entire flow and the layout of the content. So the left div will have multiple divs inside like this and will stack up our content. The right hand side, it's a simple div, nothing in it, just an image. So this is the approach that we'll be undertaking to achieve this result. Let's see how we can do this. So before we begin our implementation, I would advise you to go to FrontendMentor and click on this. Once you are here, you'll be able to see the challenge hub. So you can go here and please download the starter package. It will have all the assets, all the images and the style guide and everything that is essential for us to get started. So I have already downloaded this. So we'll go here. So see, first we have the assets. In the assets we have our fonts and the images that we are going to use throughout the implementation. Here we have our fonts, that is Roboto. If you come back, we have all our design. See, in a detailed manner, we have our active states over here, and our desktop design and preview success. Everything we can see over here that what we are supposed to build. So before beginning, please have a go through all of this. Particularly, we'll be using style guide from this. I've already used style guide over here, so we'll be able to see all the colors that we need for the implementation, the typography, the font size, our weights, the font family, and most importantly we'll be able to see the width of the designs. That for mobile it was created for this width and for desktop for this width. So please download the starter package before we begin. Go through it and you'll be able to understand the project in a much better manner. Also, if you take on the Pro version, you'll be able to get access to Figma files. I don't have the Pro version right now, but I'll take it in future. If you get access to Figma files, you'll be able to get a detailed and much better understanding on what we are supposed to build. So let's begin now. So first of all, we'll be starting from here. We'll create a new folder over here named as components. In this folder, we'll be storing all the components that we are going to create throughout our project. So I'll create one more folder inside of it. Let's name it as newsletter, and within newsletter let's have one file named as newsletter.jsx. So this will be our core component that will contain everything. To style this, as we are using CSS, so I'll create a file for this, CSS file for this, and we'll be using module.css over here. Now I'll use RAFCE, which is React Arrow Function Component Export. It's a snippet. If you don't know about it, you can go to extensions and This is the ES7 test one. So it's a great snippet if you work with React. It gives you a great number of snippets which can really enhance your coding speed. So please use this if you are not. So I've used this RAFCE. So our newsletter is done over here. Now we can go to app.js over here, and instead of this h1, what we can do is we can simply import our newsletter over here. That's it. If we save this and if we go here, so yes, we have our newsletter up and running. No issues over here. Okay, so now let's go inside newsletter.jsx and we'll start off with our implementation. So first of all, we need to create a div which will wrap our entire component, and that should have a class of container, right? But before that, before using the class names, we can import our styles from our module.css. So let me just import them. /module newsletter .module.css. Okay, so if we have to use anything from this file, from the module file, we'll have to specify our class name like this. So it should be styles.container. So within this container we need to have a wrapper. So we discussed in the earlier sections of our video, so we need to have one wrapper. So we'll create a div and give it a class name of styles.wrapper. Simple. So there's a container, and inside of that we have a wrapper. So after this, we'll create two divs. The left div will be for the content and the right div will be for the image. So let's create a div. This is the left div, so we can name it styles.left, and this is the right div. We can name it styles.right. So that's it. We have created the basic structure that we'll be following for our implementation. There is one more thing that I would like to mention over here. If we go to index.css, we can simply remove all of the style over here. We didn't do it before, and inside of it, inside of this file, we'll be putting all the style that is global to our entire application. So for example, we'll first normalize our CSS to provide a uniform layout to the entire application. So we'll do margin 0 and padding 0. We'll also add scroll behavior to smooth. Okay, so these properties will be applied to all the elements that we'll be building in our project. So before moving forward, let's first revise our diagram over here. So we are done with the container div, we're done with the wrapper, left and right div. So we've created the outline. Now we are on to the main content, which is this one, and the image on the right hand side. Now we have to create both of the divs. So we'll go here, and optionally, if you want to gain more control over the elements that are going to be inside the left div, you can create one more div over here which will wrap those elements. Which elements? If you ask me, all these elements: heading, subtitle, the list content, input button. To wrap these particular elements, we can create one more div, and that's what we are doing over here. So I'll just name it styles.left content. So okay, so we'll be placing all our divs inside of it and the image over here. Let's save it and see the browser. If we go over here, we cannot see anything because there's no content right now. Okay, so let me put some content over here. Here I'll write h1 content and maybe h2 image, anything. It's just for demonstration purposes. Okay, so we are getting our heading over here. Okay, For the naming, one thing that I would like to mention, that for the naming convention like this, you can follow the block element modifier model, which is for CSS. It will allow you to write classes in a better manner. Actually, I'm not following BEM right now, but I am trying to implement it in my future videos. But I'm just trying to provide you a reference so that you can write classes and the names of the classes specifically in a much better manner. So it's just a naming convention, and it's a great concept to write the classes and the names. So please give it a try. It'll be a great addition to your skill set. Okay, so right now we'll go back over here. So we have content and our image over here. Next thing that we have to do is we'll style them a bit so that we'll be able to move forward. To build up this component, you can take two approaches. Either you can write all the content first, put the image first, and then try to align it as per the design, which is this one. Or you can first align the div in the center, all the divs in the center, and then put in the content. So we'll first align the div to the center, and then we'll try to include the content on the left and the image on the right. So for that purpose, what we are going to do is first, please see, you can see that there's a grayish and bluish shade behind this card. So we'll also create this. If you don't want it, you can stretch the card entirely to complete width and height of your viewport, and that will be okay also. But we'll try to replicate this design as much as possible, including this grayish bluish background that we have. So for that purpose, what we can do is we can go to index.css over here, and within the index.css we can write body. We can write body over here so that the styling will be applied to the entire body, and inside of this body we can add a background color. Now from where we'll get this background color? We'll get this background color from style guide. So we'll be using the charcoal gray color over here, which is HSL. I'll just copy the properties. I'll write background, paste the properties over here. Sorry, I'll remove this. I'll paste the properties over here and click on save. So if we go to the browser, see, so it has changed and it's similar to what we have in the design. To visualize the changes in real time, I'll align my VS Code and the browser side by side so that you'll be able to see everything. I'll just put it to the right side. I think this will be fine. You'll be able to see everything now in real time. Okay, in this we don't want anything, but as we can see, the font of this the text over here and the font of this is different because this is Roboto. So what we can do is we can go to Google Fonts over here, Google Fonts over here, and we can get this font over and import this font to our project. So as per the style guide, if we see the style guide, we need 400 and 700. These weights we need. So we'll go to 400. I've already selected it. So you can just simply tap here and select it, 400. And we also need 700. So if you'll click on both of these, you'll be able to get it over here. We've selected families. Go to the import statement and copy the import statement from here. So we'll just copy it and come to our index.css, and on the top we'll paste the copied statement. Save. Along with this, we have to also specify the rules for the font family. So we'll copy this and we can safely paste this within the star selector. So now if you go back to our React app, you can see that the font of the content and the image is changed. For now we can close index.css and go to our I'll just move it to this to a bit. Okay. For now, we can go to our newsletter module and start styling this. So what we have is we have our wrapper to the very center of our container. So let's bring this content to the center. So how we'll do that? First we'll select the container over here, container, and let's give it a height of 100 VH and width of 100 VW. So this will span to the entire viewport height and width. Now to center this particular, the content and the image to the center of this div, what we can do is we can give it a property of flex and align item center, justify content center. So this has come to the center. Now we have achieved centering of this div. So we have created this background and the div in the center. Now next thing that we need to do is to stack this content and the image horizontally. Right now they are stacked vertically like this. Now, and what we need to do is to stack them left and right in a horizontal manner. So how can we do that? So we'll select the wrapper and we'll add a property of flex. So that's it. Let me change it to H1 so that it looks more uniform. Okay, so content and image, we have stacked them in a horizontal manner. Next thing that we can do is we can add a background of you can see that it has a white background, so we'll add a background. And what background to add, we'll select from here. I think it's white. Yeah, it's white. Yes, so we can simply copy this and paste this over here. So we have our white background over here. Obviously the size of this thing is not equal to the size of this because it has much more content than the size of the image. We'll try to manipulate it. So let's see how we can do this. So we'll go to our newsletter. Firstly, we'll design the left content over here. So how we'll do this? We'll keep the design in consideration and then accordingly we'll move forward. So let's see the design first. We have a H1 over here, a P tag over here, a list over here, input and a button. So without any styling, first let's create all of this. And as per our initial design, this one, each of these elements have been confined within a particular div. So putting them in their own divs allows us to get more control over their placement. So let's see how we can do this. I'll remove the H1. I'll write a div, and inside of this first div I'll write the heading, which is stay updated. I'll go to the second div. I'll write a P tag over here and the content which is inside this, which is join 60,000 and everything. So I'll just simply copy paste this from my other file. I'll paste this over here. Okay. The next thing that we need is a div, and this div is for the list over here. You see these 3 items in the list. So we need 3 divs for this particular list. So first, let's put one. There would be an image tag over here. Right now I'll just write a P that we'll have to put image here, and one more P. I'll copy the content from the other file. Similarly, we'll have to create one more div. This P tag that I'm using here for the image is just a placeholder. We'll be changing it to the actual image tag when we import the assets. So I'll write one more P over here and write the second line, which is this one. And one more div over here, and write an image tag and a p tag, and the last, which is this one. Okay. Next thing after the list we have is a label and an input tag. So let's create that. So first we'll create a label. After this div, we'll create one more div and we'll create a label over here. This label would be for email, and we'll write email address over here as written in the design, and an input tag for this with the type of email. So name we can give email. So we have our email, okay. And the last thing that we have to create is a button. So we can create one more button over here. Button. So this button has a text of subscribe to monthly newsletter. So we'll write that. And this should be type of button. So we have all of our content over here. Now we can put the image, and we can also change this placeholder image to placeholder text to real images. How we are going to do this? We'll create a folder in src. We'll create a folder here, name it assets, assets, and we'll put the images inside of it. Now I've got all the icon list, icon success. I'll open this, I'll show you. So this is, this thing, the simple icon. If we see this one, icon success, it's the bigger one. If we see the sign up desktop, you see this one. So I've got all of this from the starter package that we downloaded in the starting of the video from FrontendMentor.io. So please import all the assets and put them over here. So we need it. Next thing that we need to do is we'll go to our file over here. So these are the assets, images. So what we can do is we can simply copy and paste them inside our project over here. So I'll do that. So this is our project newsletter, and outside of this I've copy pasted this assets. So I'll take all of these and put them inside src and assets, just like that. Okay, I'll close this. So I have the newsletter, src, and all of our assets. Now we can start importing these assets in our newsletter. So first we need the icon list. So we'll import, let's name it as icon list from /asset/ icon list, icon list.svg. And if we try to put it over here, we'll put an img tag, and inside of this we'll put icon list, and it's working. As you can see over here, we can give it a alt tag of list. Similarly, I'll just copy and paste it over here, and paste the similar thing over here. So we have all the text over here, as we can see. These one right now they are not aligned as they should be. We'll do that further. Next thing that I'm seeing over here, that the email address and the input are stacked in a vertical manner, but right now we have them in a horizontal manner. So there's a simple fix for this. We can bring this input out of the div and save it. So see, the email address is on the top of our input tag over here. Okay, so the next thing that we can do is we can place the image on the right hand side. We can import it. So let's import it. It should be import desktop sign up, because we are creating this website first for desktop. So we'll go to our desktop and this, and it's not auto importing, so I'll just copy and paste the import statement. It should work now, and inside the right div over here, what we'll do it is create an image tag, and we'll put this desktop sign up image. Sign up will give the alt. It's not able to resolve. Let's see how. So we have to go one more folder up. So we can see that we have the entire content on the left, the right images of these tick signs, and the image on the right hand side. So we've got all the components. Now we just have to style it. First of all, as we can observe from this image, the border is smooth, so we can use border radius property over here and try to make it similar to that. So the border radius will do 20 pixels. We can do more, like 25 pixels. Okay, next thing that we can see in the image is that the entire content on the left hand side is centered, but our content is right now towards the upper side of the division. So what we can do is we need to center the entire component in this div. So let's do it, and for this purpose we'll be using this particular class left content. So I'll just copy it and paste it over here. Left content. First we'll give the display of flex. Okay, and then we need to specify the flex direction as column so that they'll come in a vertical manner. Okay, and now we can justify the content space between. Nothing much has happened right now because this particular div on the left hand side, the left content div, it does not have any height or width. We can visualize this by using a color. So you can see the entire width and height of this div. Just for visualization purposes, it's better to use background color so that you'll be able to see clearly how your div spans across. So now what we can do is give some height and width. So height I'll give about 70%, and width I'll give about 85%. Okay, so it's looking much better, but what we need to do is to bring this entire div to the center. For that purpose we'll be using margin 0 auto, so it's to the center, and we have to shift the div towards the center, so we need some margin from the top. So margin top will add over here, let's say 75 pixels. I'll remove this background color for now. So as we can see, our content has come to the center and we can move ahead with further styling. Next thing that we can style over here is our h1. So I'll select the h1 that is inside left content. We'll give it some font size first. Let's say 52 pixels. It's become so that it's like this. Next thing we need to give it as some weight. So we'll give it some font weight of 700. And next thing that we can give is the color. If you observe closely over here, this is different color, it's not black, so we need to give an appropriate color to it. So we'll give the color, and to get the color we'll use our style guide. From this we'll be using this particular color, dark slate gray. We'll just paste it over here, so you can observe that the color has now changed. So the h1 styling is done. Next we can move on to the p, that is after the p tag, which is after the h1, this one. So I'll select the p tag which is inside left content, and first of all I'll give it some font size, let's say 15 pixels, and then I'll give it some line height of 1.5, font weight of 400, and at the end we'll give it an appropriate color according to the design. So it would be the same color over here. So our h1 and the p tag, the paragraph on the top, is done. Now next we have to style the list, but before that we can observe over here that we haven't given any class name to it, to these particular divs, so we need to give some class name. So I'll just select all of them at once, div, and this particular div. So I'll give a class name to it so that we can style all of them together. So it would be styles dot, you can give it any name, let's name it as list. So after this we'll go over here and then select the list class, and within this list class we'll do display flex. So now the image on the left hand side and this text has come in a straight line. Now we need to add some gap between both of like this element, the text sign, and the description over here. So we'll give some gap over here, let's say 10 pixels. So now you can see the design is coming close to what it was. It might not be appropriately pixel perfect at this moment because we don't have access to Figma files, but we'll try to take this our design as close as to the design which has been given to us. So next let us style the label tag, which is the email address, and the input property over here. So we'll select the label directly because there's only one label in our entire form, so we can select it directly. We can give it a font size first. If you observe, it's smaller than rest of the text over here, so we'll give a font size of 11 pixels. Okay, and then we'll add some font weight to it. We'll make it a bit bold. After the label tag, what we'll do is we'll style the input tag. As there's only one label and one input tag, that's why I'm selecting it directly. If there would have been multiple, then the approach would have been different. So we need to make it something like this. Okay, so let's make it. First we can add some padding over here, let's say 15 pixels and 25 pixels, so it will become like this. Next thing what we can do is to give the border radius. You can see it's rounded on all the corners, so we can give border radius. So border radius over here will give 4 pixels. It's become ugly now, so let's remove this thing by doing outline none, and we'll give some border to it, like 1 pixel solid, and it needs some color, but we'll take the colors from our style guide only. Let's take this gray color and paste it over here. So it's become like this now. So if you compare this and this, it looks almost similar. You can change the colors, you can play with the colors, you can play with the padding and see what is the best result you can get. But according to me, I think this will do. The last thing that we have to do is to style the button that is present over here. But before that, let's style the placeholder inside. So if you scroll, if you see some other image, this one, so it has a placeholder which is in a bit of light color, a faded color. So we need to do this. Let's do the placeholder first. For that, what we'll do is we'll select the placeholder like this, input placeholder, and we'll just simply give it some color. We'll give it the same color that we use for the border, but there's nothing inside it, so let's add something over here. Input placeholder. What's the placeholder? It's email@company.com, so we'll use the same thing, email@company.com. So you can observe that this and this is much similar. Next thing that we need to style is our button. So let's do the button now. As there's only one button, I'm selecting it directly. I'll start with some padding and let's save it. Okay, I'll add some border to it. Border, I'll add none, and I'll give it some border radius now. Border radius 4 pixels. Next thing is I'll give some background to it. Let's give it. Let's pick one of the backgrounds from here. Let's use this one, dark slate gray, and I'll paste it over here. Okay, it looks similar, but we need to change the text color over here. So the next thing we can do is add some color. Let's pick some color from here. It's the white one, and the white color. And when we take our pointer to it, it's not changing, so for that we'll use cursor pointer. So it will change like this. If we see and compare our buttons, they are similar. If we want, optionally we can give the weight of the text as bold, like this. It looks much better and much similar now. If you scroll to one of the other images like this, see, if we hover over the button, it's changing to a gradient type of background. So we need to do this also. So let's do. So button on hover should change to a background color. And for getting this gradient, we don't have this gradient in the style guide. We don't have this over here. So I'll use one of the website that I use frequently. It's called CSS gradients. So there are numerous gradients over here, and we can just pick one of them which is similar to the gradient that is shown here, and then we can add it. So after searching, I have found one gradient which resembles to the gradient which has been shown in this design. I'll just write this over here and you'll be able to understand. Please note this website and go through it. There are many resources over here which can be used in the projects. It's great, it's very simple. You can simply copy CSS from here. If you want to change the gradients, you can change it from here. Everything is customizable, so it's a great website for UI design. For button hover, I'll add a gradient color of, I'll upload the entire code to GitHub, so you'll be able to get this particular code and everything that I'm writing, so don't worry about this. So this is the color that we'll be using. So if we go back to React tab, I'll close this. It's something like this. It's not gradient, so we'll add the gradient now. Background image we'll use, and we use linear gradient over here. For 45 degree, we'll use a color. This one. Let's add hash over here, and this is for this is 0% over here, and one more color for the 100%. Let's add hash over here, and 100% this. So let's see how it works now. See, so you can observe it's not very similar to this, but somewhere close to this. You can play with different gradients and see what's the best result. So this is our entire styling related to this particular component, but next we need to style this image on the right. You can see it's not fitting on the right division, so we need to style it. So let's style our right division. So I'll select the .right class, which is this one. For the left we are done, so we can close this. Now we are styling the right side. So for right we can, what we can do is, first of all I'll do some display flex. See, it's become, the overflow has gone now, and let's see if it makes any change to this. There are no changes. We'll keep these lines for now, and if we don't need, we'll remove them in the future. I'll select the image which is inside the right hand side. I'll give it some height first, maybe 92%. Okay, and let's give some margin to it on the right hand side. You see, on this side, if you observe the top and the bottom, they are equal, but the right hand side, left obviously we do not have, but the right hand side it's not equal. So let's make it equal by giving some margin. It should be 10 pixels, I think. Yeah, it looks much better. So this is the entire styling that we need to do for this newsletter component. So I'll zoom out. So this was it, and this is what we have built. I'll drag this over here so you can compare our designs. I've given border radius to this image as well. If you want to remove it, you can, but I think we've done pretty good over here. We have achieved the result. Next thing that we need to design is this particular model. So whenever we'll click this button, right now nothing is happening, but if we click it, this model should open. So next we'll design this. Before we proceed on to our model, I need to add one thing over here. So if we go back to our list, we can see that the spacing between these is not optimal. If we look at this, the spacing is less and we have much spacing. So we'll do a simple fix over here. What we can do is we can add margin bottom of -10, so they'll come closer. So it looks much better now. Okay, so we are done with this. So for the model, I have drawn this particular diagram and we'll be following this. So we'll have a container which will span to the entire viewport height and width. It's similar to this, and we'll have a model div which will act as a wrapper for entire content, and we'll have another div similar to this left content div. So this will house all the content that we need to have for our model. So I'll explain. So this bluish grayish kind of thing, this is the container. The white one that you see is the model, and the content that is inside it should be placed inside this model content. So we'll make this now and let's see how it goes. For this purpose, I'll go to our components folder. I'll create one more folder inside components and I'll name it model. Create a file inside of it, a component inside of it, which is model.js, and we'll create a module for this module CSS. Okay, we'll go to our app now. For some time we'll just comment our newsletter out and we'll design our model. So let's go to model. I'll use RAFCE, and in app I'll import this. So we have our model over here. Right now we are doing this in a static manner, but we'll use React and its different states and everything to manipulate the opening and closing of this model. So let's go to model now and write the JSX for it. First of all, we'll have a div which is already there. So let's give it a class name of something, class name of container, styles.container, as we discussed over here. The very first thing needs to be the container. We don't have styles right now, so we'll import it. Import styles from /model.module.css. Inside of this div we need to have another div which will be the model. So styles.model, and inside of this we can have our div that will house the content, which is styles.model content. So as per our design, if we see over here, we need to have four things actually. One is this image, one is this heading, this particular information, and the button. So we need at least 4 divs over here to style our content. So the very first div, it would just have an image. We don't have the source of image right now, so I'll add this later on. Next div would be in, let's say, h1. It will say thanks for subscribing. Next we'll have one more div which should have a p tag, and inside of this I'll write this entire content. So it should be this thing, and if you observe over here, the email ID is a bit bold. So inside of this p tag we have a bold tag. You can for now write a sample email over here, right? Slide email@company.com. It's just for visualization purposes. Later on we are going to make it dynamic by using state. We'll fetch the state from our newsletter and put the name here. So this is done. Next thing that we need, this is done, this content is also done, and the next thing that we need is the button. So for the button we'll create one more div, and we'll one more div over here, and inside of this we'll add a button and write the content, which is dismiss message. Also give the button a type of button. So that's it. We have created the JSX for our model. It does not look like this, but we need to style it and it will become like the design. Before we do so, we need to add an image over here. So we'll import the image. If we see our assets folder, we have one icon, success SVG, and this is the image that we need to use inside this model. So we'll import this. Let's name it as success from // and we'll go to assets. Inside of this we have icon success.svg. So I'll change the source to this and the all to this. Okay, so we've got this image. It's similar to this. Let's style this now. We'll go to our module CSS file. For now I'll close all of these. I'll close this one also. Okay, so we'll go to our module CSS. First thing that we need is we need to give the container some height and width, so as it needs to span over to the entire screen. So this is the height and width. Next thing, we need to bring this entire content to the center of the screen. So the similar approach that we followed the last time, we'll use that. Also, we need the content to be stacked in a vertical manner like this. So right now we'll give a flex direction column. Next thing, our container is done. So next thing what we can style is the model. Let's give it some height and width first, and then we'll add the color so that we'll be able to see the model like this. So height of 400 and width I think 375. You can change the height and width according to your preferences, or you can even set it dynamically using VH and VW, but I am just making it static right now. So I've given height this, width this. Let's give it a background color first. So background would be we'll go to a style guide and get this white color from here. This one we'll copy and paste it over here inside this. Okay, so it's looking something similar to this, not quite much, but we're coming to this phase. the obvious thing would be here now to get some border radius. So we'll keep the value same. We gave border radius 25 in our newsletter file, so we'll keep it the same. Flex, do we need flex? Yes, we need flex over here. So we'll content the center, line item center, it's to the center of it, and we'll specify it as column. Okay, so our model is set, but we need to style the model content that is inside of it. For that, we'll select this particular class, model content. So model content, and we'll style this. We'll give right now. See, if you see it spans like this. We need to increase the height and width. So we'll give it some height first. Let's give it some height first. Height, we need it to span across the entire div, so height would be 100%. Okay, good. And now what we can do is give some width to it. Let's give 80%. Okay, looking nice. And now what we can do is give some margin. It has come to the center. I'll remove this for now. If you think this is redundant, you can remove this. I was just trying to test something out. So if you want to remove the flex direction from here and here, you can do so. It's completely okay. I'm trying to play with the code. I'm trying to understand different things that will work and that might not work. So this might not be the most optimal output, but this is the output that I have got. And that is what I'm explaining throughout this video. So if you have any additions to it, please do tell me in the comments, and I'll keep them in mind for my next videos. So moving forward, we'll style the container. We'll style the P which is inside of which is this P. We need to style as there is only one paragraph tag, so we can simply select it like this P and give it some font size, let's say 13 pixels, and some line height of 1.5. Great. And next thing that we need to do is the button. We'll give a width of 100%. Right? We'll give a width of 100% to it. We need to give the same color and same everything, so I'll just copy and paste the styles which we have given over here. So let's see if this works over there. It should work. Okay, let's just give width now 100%. Alright, so it's looking similar to this, although the spacing is not optimal right now, but it looks quite similar. Let's move forward. We just need to give spacing between all these divs. See, the spacing over here, the spacing over here, and here. We don't have any over here. So what we'll do is we need to give the spacing between all the divs. All these divs need to have some spacing. So I'll go here and write model content and select all the divs that are inside model content. I'll give some margin bottom to it, let's say 20 pixels, so they'll span out to the entire height of this model. So I believe we have come closer to this. So this is the model that was given to us, and this is the model that we have created. So I think this is similar. We have missed one dot over here. Let's add this. We'll go to our model .com. After go here, we missed a dot over here. Let's see if it's similar. Yeah, this is similar now. We'll just give some space over here. Yeah. So you can compare the design and our implementation. I think both of them are similar. One more thing that we need to add is this hover property. It's not doing anything right now, so we'll add the hover property, but we'll use the same thing over here. So I'll just copy and paste it. I'll just copy and paste it over here. So it's working now. If you want to make this a bit smooth, you can add a transition property. You can add a transition property and use ease in or ease out, any of them. It will make the transition much more smooth. While developing this, we have broken one of the rules that we should note, is that we have repeated the code. We have repeated this code and this particular code. If you want, you can create a separate component for this over here. If we can create a component over here and then pass in appropriate message, appropriate content via props, and then we can handle it. But this is a very simple component, that's why I'm not creating a separate component for the button. Otherwise, if this would have been an entire project, entire website, it would have been much more feasible to create a separate component for button and then manipulate the functionality and the text by using props. So we're done with the designing of our model and our newsletter. Next thing that we need to do is to make this input field come alive. Right now it's static, it's not doing anything. So we'll need to make this come alive by using the state property, and we'll have to manipulate the functioning of this button. When clicked, it should open this particular model that we're seeing on the left hand side. So let's see how we'll approach to it. So first of all, I'll go to app.js, and in here I'll comment the model, and I'll take this newsletter, I'll uncomment it from here as well. I'll comment the model import. So we have this right now. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go to newsletter, not the module, the newsletter component. Over here, if we go to our input, okay, so it does not have any value or anything right now. I'll expand this over here because our styling is done. All we need to do is this. So we need to put some value to it, and for the value I'll add the property value and give it a property of email, but we don't have this email, so we'll create this. And for creating this, I'm using useState hook over here, so I'll use useState, and the initial property would be empty. So this is the email, right? So now we can manipulate this. If we come over here, so we can add a on change function over here, and on change we can write handle email change, or even handle email, anything is fine, it should be understandable. So we'll create this function over here, handle email change, and what this will take is we'll have an event over here. So let's get const input is equal to e.target.value, and we'll set the email as this input. Let's name it input email. Okay, this is done. Now whenever this form is submitted, this little input and is clicked and this is submitted, so next thing that we have to do is to open up the model. But first we need to handle the submission, and for that purpose what we'll do is we'll use this particular button that we have created at the end. Inside this button I'll add an on click property. I'll add on click property and name this handle submit. Copy this and create this function at the top, handle submit. Sorry, I'll create const handle submit. Similar to the previous function, it will also have an access to event. So first thing that we need to do is prevent the default behavior. e.prevent default. Now whenever the submission is done, we should open the model. So our model should open when our submission is done. So now what we'll do is I'll write a pseudocode for you first. So I'll just write it over here. So if there's a valid email, then model should open, else error should be thrown, right? So we'll have to make a function which does this. So we'll have to check the validity of the email first, and for that we can use regular expression. You can get a regular expression of email from ChatGPT or from Google. It's very common. I'll paste it over here. So this is the regular expression that is used to test the validity of an email. Okay, so we'll create one more state over here, which is valid email and set valid email. Essentially this will be used to check the validity of the email, whether or not the email is in the correct format or not. Initially let's say it should be true. Okay, let's keep it true. So on email change, what we'll do is we'll check the set valid email. We'll check email and we'll test it. We'll use the dot test and we'll pass in input email, and what we can do is we can also check if the email field is empty. So what we are doing here is checking the validity of email using regular expression, and in the statement in the this side we are checking whether or not the input email is empty. So now we can come here to our handle submit function over here. So if valid email, if the email is valid, we'll write something, console log, we'll write form submitted successfully, else if it's not true, then we'll simply write that there's some error. If our form is submitted successfully, what we'll do next is we'll open up the model. So we have to write our logic for opening the model over here, and for that purpose we can use one more state. So we'll write const as model open set is model open, and initially it should be false. So if we come over here, we can simply write that set is model open to true, otherwise it would remain false. So before moving forward, I'd like to summarize what we have done. We just simply created an email and set email useState over here, and we are using it to handle the email change. So nothing too complex over here. We are just taking the event from here and then putting it to set email. Alongside this, we are also using a regular expression for email, and as we are changing the email, we are checking its validity like this. So we have two cases inside of it. First, we are checking the validity of email using regular expression, and secondly we are checking whether or not our input is empty. So this will be used to set whether or not the email is valid, and this set valid email is another useState hook over here. So if this is okay, we'll move here, and we have created on click function that is handle submit on the button, and when this button is clicked, if the email is valid, so if this is valid, our form will be submitted and our model will be opened. Now to open and close the model, we are also using one more useState hook, which is this one. So if we submit our form, it should set the set is model open to true, and when this is set to true, our model should open. So this is the entire workflow. Now how will our model open? So we'll add one return property. Inside this return, what we'll do is we'll check as model open. We'll check for this state. We'll use this thing, and if this is true, if the model is open, we'll add our model over here. So if the model is open, if this is set to true, our model will be rendered. If not, this should be rendered, and for that we'll just have to add a colon to it. So return is model open, check for this. If the model is open, if the model open is true, open the model, else render the entire newsletter. I'll save it and let's see if it works. The project is not broken, so whatever we have done is correct. To check whether or not our model is rendering, I'll change this property to true. So you can see it's working. Now how can we make this dynamic? Let's see. So I'll add some email over here, a@a.com. I'll click on this, and as I click on this, our model is opening. So it's working correctly. But if I click on the dismiss message, it's not closing. So we need to add one more thing. We need to handle the on click property on this button over here. So let's go to modal.jsx. This is the button, this one, and we need to handle the on click property over here. So what we'll do is we'll add on click over here, on click, and we'll have handle button click. You can name it anything. It should be but simple and understandable. So we'll create this function, handle button click. Inside of this, either you can pass down the state over here, you can drill down the state and then manipulate the opening and closing. And one more approach is to do the entire thing in the parent. So we will be doing this. I'll explain you how it's going. So first thing that we need to do is we need to go to our newsletter, and inside of this model over here, we should be providing a prop. We'll name it on close model. We'll have to create a function for this. We'll name it handle close model. We'll come here and create this function handle close model. So what it will do is it will simply set the is model open hook to false. The set is model open property to false. It should, and as soon as it triggers it to false, this part will not be rendered and our newsletter will be rendered. I'll show you the working. Alongside, when the model closes, we'll also clean up the email. Now we'll use this particular prop inside of our model. We'll get this prop over here. I'll get this prop over here, and it was on close model, and we'll just execute here. It's looking complex, but it's not. So I'll explain you how it works. So in newsletter we have this. We've created a prop named as onClose model, and what this prop does is it executes a function, handle close model. So if we go to handle close model, it's doing one simple thing, that it's changing the property of set is model open to false, means it wants the model to be closed, and alongside it's setting the email property to empty to its initial state. If we come to the model.jsx now, we are taking this as the prop and we are executing the function. That's it. So if we click on this, onClose model is not a function. Okay, so I found out the error. It was a silly error. So what I did is I passed the onClose model property as a parameter to the handle button click function, but actually it should be passed as a prop to the model. So if we just simply switch the statement to here and click on dismiss, it's done. So we are able to navigate. So I'll try it something like a@a.com. If I click on subscribe, it's done. Now one more thing that we can do is we can dynamically change this property. So how we'll do it, so we'll have to go to our newsletter, and inside of this what we can do is give a property of name, and inside of this name we can send an email. If in any case we are not able to fetch this email, the email property, we can pass in a fallback property of subscriber. This could be anything. So either the name would be email or the subscriber. So we can go to model.jsx and get this name out of here, and inside of this p tag we can simply write the name. Let's see if this works. See, it has changed to a@a.com. Let's check it. If we write Frontend at FrontEnd.com, if you subscribe to it, it's working now. So we have made this dynamic. Now next thing that we need to do is to create the validation states. So let's see we haven't yet created this validation error and the state, so we'll be doing this next. So let's see how that can be done. So I've come to our newsletter component, and we'll be using this particular component to style our warning message and error like this. So we need a couple of things. The first one being we need to have an error message over here that says valid email required, and when this occurs we need to change the border, the background color and the placeholder color to tomato red. So let's see how we can approach this and make this. So first of all, I'll come here to this particular div which holds this area, the email address. Inside of this I'll add a p tag over here that says valid email required. This is the message that we have seen in the design, this one. So let's style it now. So first of all, I'll give this div a class name, and it should be styles. It could be anything. I'll give it email label so that we'll understand that it's related to email. Okay, so I'll just copy it, and we'll go to our newsletter module and paste it over here. Inside of this we'll write some styling. So first of all, we should make them come in one single line. Right now they are stacked in a vertical manner. We should make them in a horizontal manner. So it's a simple thing. So what we can do is we can make it display flex. It'll come like this. If you see over here, the email address is on the left hand side, and this one, the warning message, is on the right hand side. So for that we can use justify content property, and we can keep it space between. Next thing that we have to do is to resize it and give it an appropriate color. So I'll select the p tag, but the p tag which is inside of email label, and For this, first of all, I'll give it a color. We'll pull up the color from this, the tomato. We'll be using this particular color. Let's paste it. Okay, nice. And the next thing that we have to do is to give it some font size. Let's give it 11 pixels. Okay, more, they are same now. Next that we have to do is, let's see if it makes any difference. No, so we can remove this. Okay, and let's make it a bit bold, so font weight will add some bold, so it kind of looks like what we have over here. There's a bit of more spacing over here in comparison to this. I hope you can fix it. It's a very simple fix. If you can, tell me in the comments how you did it. Next thing that you have to style is the input property over here. So for the input property, we have to select the, let me see the JSX, we have to select this particular input, but it does not have any class name right now, so let's give it some class name. We'll name it styles dot input property, input prop maybe, yeah. So I'll just copy it, take it here and paste it. So for this, first we need to have a border of tomato color, the background of tomato, but the opacity should be reduced, and what else, the color of the placeholder should also change. So how we'll do this, so first we'll take border, let's say 1 pixel solid, and we'll use this particular color. So this color will paste over here. Okay, next thing that we have to do is to add a background color, and we'll be using, I'll give you the property over here, we'll be using this particular color. Okay, and the next thing that you have to do is to give the text color. So it's the same as the HSL that we used before, this one. We're not able to see the output as of now because I haven't saved it yet. So see, it's as similar as what has been shown in the error@gmail.com. See, so if you see this particular design and our implementation, both of them are same. So how did we achieve this? We just give a border color, we give a background color, but we change the opacity. So if you do it 1, it will be completely like this. So we reduce the opacity to minimum, so it's a bit of a transparent over here. You can increase this thing and check out which works the best for you, but I believe 0.1 would be the best value. So we have been able to achieve this particular result. Now the thing is, we have to make it dynamic. So whenever the error would be the email would be an error, so it should pop up. And how we'll do that, let's see next. To achieve our desired result, there's a very simple fix that we can do. First of all, we have to render this dynamically. So we can add conditions over it and then render it. So how we'll do this? There are 2 things that we'll have to check. The first one being if the provided input is valid or not. If it's not valid, we'll add not. If the email is not valid, then this p tag should pop up. Also, we'll have to check for one more thing. If the email given is not empty. So what it means that the email is not empty, it means that the user has entered something, and if the entered value is not valid, then only we'll be rendering this particular p tag over here, right? So this should work. Let me save it. It's gone. Now what we have to do is, let's give this p tag a class of styles.warning, and I'll copy this thing, go to newsletter module, and instead of this we'll write warning. So let's see, if we enter something, it's not working. Let's see why. Alright, so I found the fix. It was a very simple fix over here. So what we'll do is we'll just add the class email label so that it's able to understand that the warning is inside email label, and as soon as we do that, See, it's running now. The next thing that we have to style is, see, this border color, this should pop up when our input is incorrect. So how we'll do that? So we'll go to newsletter again, and we'll have to make this class name dynamic. So let's see how we can do this. So class name equals to, we'll again check for the very same properties that we did over here. So first of all, we'll check, let's check for email first. Email should not be equal to an empty string. Alongside this, it should not be valid. If both of these conditions are true, then in that case we'll have to render this particular class, the error class. We can name it error also, input error. Let's name it input error. So we'll render this class input error, else nothing. See, the color is gone, and as soon as I type, it's not changing. So let's see what's the error over. Oh, I haven't saved this, so it's done. See, if I cancel all of this, the warning goes away, and if I start writing, if the email is not valid, it stays, and if I write a correct email over here, it's gone. So when we click this button now, it says thanks for subscribing, and it gives the email over here. So I think our application is done. Let's just check. So we have made this thing. We've also made this one. This is the preview. We have done this, we have done this, we have done this also, right? We have done this also, a@a.com. Yeah, we have done this, and lastly we have done the error states also. Now we just have to make the mobile design for both of these. So let's see how we can do that. So I will be making the website responsive for one particular width which has been specified in the style guide. So for mobile, it's specified that it's 375. So we'll be using this particular value as the breakpoint, and then we'll style the component and our website. So how we'll do, let me first go to inspect, and in the responsive section I have set the width to 375. So let's see how we can do this. So let's go to newsletter module, and here I'll write a media query. So the media query needs to be at media only screen, and we are designing this for max width of 375 pixels. So inside this, first what we have to do is to change the wrapper. Right now our flex direction is we have to change the flex direction first. So let's see how we can do this. So flex direction, if I do column, it'll be like this. The image is at the bottom, the content is at the top, but we want this thing like this. Right now it's reverse, so we'll add column reverse property to this. Okay, this is done. Now what we are saying is that the image is for the desktop preview, but we are currently seeing this in the mobile view. So we'll have to render an appropriate image based on the screen size. So for that, what we can do is we can go back to our newsletter, and within the newsletter, let's first pull up the image for mobile sign up. So mobile sign up from our assets folder, and it should be named as, it's the same name just with the mobile. So I'll copy the name from this. For some reason it's not auto importing, so I'll just write mobile svg over here. Okay, so what we have to do is, when the width of the screen shifts to 375, we need to render a different image. So there's a simple thing what we can do. Firstly, we can create a constant for this, and we can check the inner width of our screen. So this value will tell us what the value of the screen is, and by using this particular variable, what we can do is change the image that is being rendered over here. So the image is rendered on the right hand side, this one. So instead of hard coding desktop sign up over here, we can change it to we can manipulate this by using the constant that we have created. So we'll check if the view is greater than or equal to 375. In that case, we'll pull up desktop sign up. If not, see, if it's greater than 375, we'll pull up desktop sign up. Otherwise, we'll pull up mobile sign up. So let me refresh this. It should work. It's not working right now. Okay, so I found out the error. So the thing is, our view constant is not updating when the screen size is changing, and for that purpose what we can do is we can simply use a useEffect hook. So how we'll do that? So first of all, we'll take I've defined one more state over here, useState. I've set the parameters as view and set view, and the initial value to window.innerWidth. So initially our view would be this, and we'll be changing this value if our screen size changes, and for that purpose we are going to use useEffect hook. So how we'll do that? So useEffect, and it takes a function and a dependency array. We'll keep the dependency array as empty. So inside of this we'll write a function const handle resize, and we'll make it equal to, so whenever the screen is being resized, so what we'll do is we'll simply set view, not valid email, set view. What will set the view to? Window.innerWidth. Now we'll have to attach an event listener so that this handle resize can execute. So we'll attach the event listener on the window itself, and if it is resized, then handle resize should be executed. We have attached the event listener to the window, so we'll have to clean up the event listener once the component is unmounted. So we'll write a cleanup function over here. So return function takes the same thing, window dot, but this time we'll remove the event listener, resize and handle resize, and the dependency array we can keep it empty. So what I've done here is rather than specifying view as a constant which never changes, we are using state, the initial state as window.innerWidth. We're setting it to view, and we are using this particular view in the image over here and checking for the width. Now to change the value of this view, what we are doing is using a useEffect hook. Inside this we have attached an event listener to the window, and whenever this resizes, we are executing a function handle resize, and whenever the component unmounts, we are using a cleanup function. So this, when the resize happens, it'll take us to this particular line over here, right? So this is what we are doing. Let's see if this works. So if I inspect it, so I'll put 375 over here. If it's less than 375, so alright, as you can see over here, if we are changing the width and if it comes below 375, observe here that the source of our image is changed from desktop to mobile. So it's working as expected. So now let's style the rest of the elements and let's see how it goes. So for styling rest of the elements, let's go to newsletter module.css, and inside here first what we'll do is let's give border radius of 0 to our this wrapper. This should not be curved. That's okay. If we see the image, it's not curved anywhere. The border radius of 0. Also will give this a height of 100 bh. We'll span it completely. It's not looking good right now, but we'll do this. So second thing that we can do is change the h1. So we can reduce the size a bit. Let's make it 50, a bit smaller. And after this, let's first go for the image. So the image will give a height of 100%, width of 100%. Let's see how it is. Okay, we'll do margin 0 auto, so it's centered. Also we'll make it object fit of, not contain but cover. Alright, so it looks good now, similar to this. See, looks good now. Now we'll have to style these divs and the button. So we'll select the divs inside our left div, all the divs inside our left. Let's give them a margin bottom of 20 pixels. Looks good. Okay, and let's also give the same to the input, which to the input which is inside the left. Let's see if this works. Okay, it's working now. Next thing what we can do is give this. See, the button is not doing anything right now, so if we hover over it, it's not doing anything. So let's give the same property that we gave over here, the button over this one. We'll just paste it over here so that it'll work. Maybe it's not working in responsive, but just to make sure, I've added this property over here. Now there's one error over here, that the image has gone towards the upside, so we'll have to reduce this. How we can do this, let's see. So to fix this error, what I've done is I've just simply given a height to our right container. So when we give the height to the right container, it's fixed. So I believe this is similar to this, not pixel perfect, but yes, we have achieved a similar kind of result. If we would have the Figma files, we would have been able to make this more closer. Also, if you see over here, there's some border radius. So it's a very simple code of line of code which you can add. So you'll have to give border radius to both of the sides. So we are done with the mobile design. Let's make this one now mobile success. So let's see how we can do this. So for this, let me save the newsletter as well. Okay, so for this we'll go to module.css, and within this we'll have to style our module. So let's see how we approach this. So we'll write the same media query that we did before over here. I'll copy this and paste it over here. Inside of this, let me take it to the screen. Okay, so we need to style this now. So how can we do this? Let's first style the container. We'll give it a background of white, so that it's entirely white like this. Okay, next thing what we have to do is give this model a height of 100 VH, height of 100 VH. It's going to the up. Next thing that we have to do is to style the modal content. Let me see the class name for modal content. It's modal underscore content. I'll copy this, take it over here, paste modal content. Okay, we'll use this. So I'll give it a display of flex, not in line but flex. And okay, I used the wrong brackets over here. I'll give it a display of flex direction of column, and justify content to the center. So it's like this now. There's one more thing that I'll leave you to do. So if you see, the button is at the bottom, but in our design the button is in the center. So I hope you'll be able to do this. Consider this as a simple task for you. It's a simple thing. You just have to stretch the button towards the end. It's a flex property that you can use. I hope you'll be able to do this. So this was our entire implementation. Let's see it once completely. Okay. before wrapping it up, there's one more quick thing that I would like to add over here. So if we go to newsletter, whenever the email is wrong like this, it's still going to subscribe, but it should not. We can optionally disable the button. So we'll go to newsletter, and to this button property we'll disable this if the email is not valid. So the same properties, the same checks that we are using here, we'll add this. So we'll add the disabled property. It will work if the email is not valid or if the email is empty. So if we go here, it's still working. So we'll have to style this newsletter. Let's do this button. Okay, so here we have to, let's add this below the button. So when the button is disabled, so in that case there are two things that we'll have to do. First thing, we can use a cursor of not allowed, and second thing is we can add a background color. We can change the background color. So let's see which of the background color would be okay. Let's add this dark slate gray color. I think this should be fine. So if we go over here, we can paste this. So if we see, whenever our email is incorrect, so it will not allow us to submit the form, and as soon as we write a correct email, it will allow us to submit the form. So I believe that our implementation is complete. This is our desktop view. We'll add a wrong email here to see the result. It's not allowing. The correct email, it's allowing, and this thing in the responsive. So that was our project. I hope you liked it. I have undertaken a very slow approach in developing the entire project, as I have explained each and every line of code that I have written. I hope this will be helpful to React developers and to new web developers. So if you liked it, please leave a comment, and if you didn't like something or didn't understand something from the code, you can comment down or check the GitHub repository. I'll give this link in the description so you'll be able to access it. I'll be doing more FrontendMentor challenges, so stay tuned, and I'll see you the next time. Thank you.